Hi, my name is Kayleigh, and in this video I'm going to show you how to install and wire your NTUNE6 and how to get your 4-channel amp and your subwoofer amp installed into your truck. For the sake of the video, I took my driver's seat completely out of the truck. However, you do not need to do that. You can just lean it back. In this step, I'm going to show you how to connect your plug-and-play wiring to your NTUNE6. You're going to start out, you need to get these black wires out of the way. You're not going to be using those at the moment. Next, you're going to separate the wiring with only 2 purple wires. So for this part, I'm going to cut the wiring. I'm going to make sure to cut the 2 blue sets. I'm going to do the gray and white wiring and the green and purple wiring that have 4 wires on each. Okay, so for our next step, starting with my white wire with 0 black on it, I'm going to go ahead and strip it a little bit, just like that. Go ahead and twist it and stick it in my NTUNE6. Okay, getting all my wires inserted. I'm going to make sure they're in there snug but not too tight to where I'll break the wires. I'm going to make sure there's no wiring showing so they don't come in contact with each other and then they're not going to pop out. So following the colors on the NTUNE6, I'm going to connect my wires correctly. We're going to skip the amp blue for now. That is a later connection. You're going to put the yellow wire from harness 3 and the red wire from harness 3 in these 2 spots, and then this one is going to be for your ground black. For this next part, I'm going to show you how to connect your blue remote wire, your black ground wire, and your RCA cables. In this next part, I'm going to show you how to connect your RCA cables. You've got front, rear, and sub. You want to make sure to do white to white, red to red. For identification purposes, when I go to connect them, I like to put 1 mark on my front, 2 marks on my rear, and 3 marks on my sub. Okay, so now that I have my RCAs connected and my ground and remote wire, I'm going to go ahead and hide my NTUNE6 along with its wiring. Before I tuck this away, I'm going to go ahead and make sure to set this to mode 1, and you don't need to mess with any of these because they are already preset at the factory. Now that I have those wires connected, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hide my NTUNE6 along with the wiring. I'm going to kind of coil it up nicely and then stick it over here. I want to make sure I keep my amp wiring over here along with my subwoofer wiring. My ground wiring, I'm going to go ahead and lay this direction, and then my remote wire, I'm going to go ahead and lay this way. And lastly, I'm going to route my RCAs in this direction. Okay, so for this next part, I'm going to go ahead and lift up my carpet, and you're going to have 2 mounting locations. This one is going to be for mounting my amp rack, and this one is going to be my ground location. I'm going to go ahead and get some sandpaper, and I'm going to strip away the paint so I make sure I get a good ground. Okay, so now that I have all of my wiring laid out, I'm going to go ahead and grab my amp rack and take the amp ground wires from there and my NTUNE6 ground wire, and I'm going to connect them to the area that I sanded down on my truck. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take my 2 amp wires, and then I'm going to take my NTUNE6 ground wire and I'm going to set that one on top of those 2. And I'm going to take this bolt included in my kit, go ahead and stick those through and hand tighten it. And now I'm going to take a 10mm socket. Now that I've got it in, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I get it nice and tight because tight grounds are very important. For this next step, I'm going to go ahead and grab my RCA wiring and my base knob wiring. I'm going to start out, remember I marked my RCAs. I'm going to get my back wiring and go in on this far side right here. And now for my subwoofer base knob. In this next step, we're going to be showing you where to mount your amp rack. You're going to lift up your carpet here. There's going to be 2 mounting locations, and you're going to have to poke holes in your carpet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bolt included in my kit. I'm going to go ahead and insert it right here because I'm going to mark on my carpet where I'm going to need to poke holes. I'm gonna go ahead and push down on my carpet so I can feel it. I'm gonna make sure to make a mark right in the center of it. And do the same thing on the other end. Just a little tip, if you put enough pressure, it will mark underneath your carpet. Just made a crisscross slit here and here on both ends. That way my carpet stays pretty intact on this end, and now I can put my bolts through. So for this next step, I'm going to run some wires through my amp rack. I'm going to start with my front output wire. This one's going to go through this hole right here. And then my rear amp output wire is going to go through the hole right next to it. I'm going to take my blue remote wire, and there's going to be a hole in front of my rear wiring. And I'm going to run that one through here. And then I'm going to take my subwoofer wiring and run it through the hole on this side. Now we got a little bit ahead of ourselves and we forgot to run our power wire to our distribution block. All you're going to have to do for this part is you're going to want to tuck it in underneath your carpet and run it through underneath your amp rack. It's included in your kit. There will be 3 bolts and washers. I think we're sending black ones in y'all's kits, but I'm not too sure. I'm going to go ahead and hand tighten those. Do the same thing over here on this side. Now that I have all 3 of them in place, I can go ahead and start here and just tighten them down. I'm just going to go back and forth just to make sure they are all nice and tight. Okay, so now that you have your wire stripped away, you can go ahead and insert it into your distribution block. Push that in all the way, and then you want to tighten this down. You're going to do like you did with the other power wires, and you're going to do a nice wiggle, and you're going to tighten it again. You want to do that 2 or 3 times to make sure you get it really secure, because if it is not, that can cause some major issues. Okay, so for this next part, we're going to go ahead and connect our blue remote wire. Go ahead and strip away about 1/2 inch. And then you're also going to have a piece of blue wire from the extra wire in your kit, and you're going to want to cut off about 6 inches of that. Strip off about 1/2 inch on this one on both sides because it's going to be a jumper wire. You're going to go ahead and start by twisting your jumper together. Go ahead and slide those in there. And tighten it back down nice and tight, but not to where you break those wires. And then you want to run the other side of your jumper over to your other amp and insert it in the remote section. Okay, you want to go ahead and leave your amp output wires disconnected because in the next video I'm going to show you how to tune your amplifier to your Tundra.